Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show Viewers, Comments and Questions Live. Dan here.
Nick here, hello!
I've just come back from a lovely weekend away with the family. 3 hours ago I was in Windsor.
Oh, you stayed over last night as well?
Yeah.
Wow, cool. Flipping hell, Dan. Whatever next?
Exactly.
Vacation?
Well, that's like it's silly.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Monday, the 10th of July. I guess special mention to those people north of New York up there having tremendous trouble with heavy rains and flooding.
Oh.
Hope everyone's doing okay, and our best. Not that really that is worth very much when people are in strife, but our hearts go out to people affected by that horrible thing, and hope you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Out there. Nevertheless, VCQ goes on. Maybe you're holed up somewhere safe and looking for a bit of distraction, in which case, sorry about that. For those of you who are new, we do this at most Mondays, and we prioritise the super chat, which I'm about to turn off because we've got loads. And we also dive into the regular comments a little bit as well. We talk about guitars, amps, effects, and some other stuff, including
and life.
Lawnmowers,
Indeed.
Philosophy, and this week a special on penguins.
Great.
For those of you, oh, there I am.
There you go.
Right,
Look, you're on the telly.
you shut up.
You shut up. Shut up.
So what did you do in Windsor, Dan? Did you see anybody royal?
No, but we were there while Uncle Joe flew in on his big helicopter.
Oh, of course.
So we flew into the grounds to see the king.
Joe Bidel was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rishi.
Rich tea.
Rich tea.
Rich tea soaked snack.
Yeah. No, it's such a lovely place. And,
Can you make a biscuit out of Joe Biden? Rich tea.
Rich tea and
Sunak.
what's the sloppy Joe?
This is a family show, Daniel.
Okay.
There must be some sort of biscuit called Joe or Biden. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll.
Maybe there's a signature Oreo. Sort of bit stale. Grey. Can't get his words out. Yes, okay. Right. I have turned the super chats off because we're overflowing with super chats. Such is the love pouring this way.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Which we appreciate greatly. Thank you for being a part of all of this. Greetings from Riyadh. Riyadh, says Memphis Lord. Memph Lord. John Dogwater says Joe Bourbon.
Bourbon, very good.
Yeah.
Aaron Lim says, "Hey guys, greetings from Singapore. I
Hello.
lived in Singapore for about 18 months. I love Singapore.
Phil Smith, Joe Bourbon. How did we miss it?
Joe Bourbon,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Are they Bourbon creams?
Well, I was supposed to give it its full name, Daniel. That's very good. It's very good.
Right, very good.
The sort of chocolate favoured brother to the custard cream. Given that both are of sandwich construction with a sort of pasty stuff in the middle.
Right, very good.
Yeah. Anyway, Eagle Ray Rob. Hello, Rob. He's picked up a Harmony made by Heritage Jupiter electric guitar with gold foil pickups. It's a nice guitar for not too many bucks.
Nice.
Yeah, be interested to hear your experience of the gold foils. They do have a fairly... they all differ, or they differ significantly between different types, but holding them together as a family is quite an interesting...
Very good.
Yeah, is that another biscuit joke, Dan?
Yep, definitely.
And could it be read out?
No, I just have Jordan Taylor says good morning from Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Todd Roy says it is better than laughing at people in a terrible situation. Yeah, hopefully we'd never do that. Hopefully we'd never do that. We had penguins topping our wedding cake, says Gordon Rankin.
Ah.
So penguins thing in America then? I guess they must be, because everything confectionery-wise we have here is from America, isn't it? So I thought they were a uniquely British thing, but maybe they're not.
I don't know what you're talking about.
A penguin biscuit.
Nope.
What did you have? Kangaroo biscuits.
They're Tim Tams.
Tim Tams.
Did you not have Tim Tams?
What was a Tim Tam, mate?
All right, I have to give it some Tim Tams.
Okay. Greetings from Forest Grove, Oregon, says Tim Chalmers. I have too much work going on today, so I'll catch you later. There's no rest for the small business owner. No, there isn't.
I hear you.
There isn't. Although we mustn't get ourselves into a contextual bias about that and tell ourselves that that's the case when in fact it is possible to carve out a bit of time.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that your boss used to say to you and you'd want to hit him with a cricket bat. Or her. I don't want to be sexist about who I hit with a cricket bat.
No. You're an equal opportunity cricket bat thumper.
Yeah, or they for that matter. Yeah, they'd say, look, you've got plenty of time, mate. You just need to organise yourself better. And I'd boil red with rage. And years later, I know it to be true.
Right.
Yeah, it's boring, isn't it? Elias Blum, north of the city. The basement is dry. Garden and pond are very happy. Thanks for your thoughts. Oh, well, that's nice to hear. Elias. Dan Stubbs is on. Hello, good to see you live again. Hello, Dan. Greetings from Maine. Any recommendations on pedals to use with baritones? Yeah, delays and reverbs work really great. Nothing with too much bass. In fact, all the pedals that work on regular guitars, you just do have to watch that frequency response, particularly in regards to the low end.
I saw a band a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's a conversation that needs to be had about bottom end. Big bottoms, talk about bum cakes. You don't have to have them all the time.
My pedal board's got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I walked into a gig on Saturday night and I was that bitch. I was the bitch at the back of the gig going, why does that sound so bad?
Right.
Why does it sound so bad? And there were two culprits, one of whom was stood on the stage, one of whom was stood behind the mixing desk.
Okay.
And it's like, together you are making a horrific noise.
Right.
Why does it have to be that bad?
Yeah.
Anyway, there we are. Hey dudes, how about a feature where you take TPS viewers' pedal boards, build them in the studio, and work your magic to get the best possible sound, says Mark Cohen. Funnily enough, Mark, we've been talking about this for about a year now, and we haven't quite got round to doing it.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, mostly laziness and logistics is a bit of an issue with this sort of thing. Because in order for it to make any sense, the viewer's got to be here, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a sort of light version where you send us a picture of the board, we can reconstruct it and then do it, but I don't think that's very inclusive of the reader. It would make reader, I'm still in magazines, it would make much more sense for the viewer to be here and you know, tell us what their problems are. So we are going to do it. We've got a couple of people lined up who are candidates, and we just need to do it.
Yeah.
I need to take some of my own JFDI medicine.
PMA097 says, hello from Slovenia.
Ah,
Lovely.
I went to Slovenia once, had a lovely time. Drove a like a poor man's Winnebago.
Okay.
Pilot.
Second Winnebago.
Pilot it was. It was a Pilot conversion of something else.
Winnebago. Second Winnebago. Or runner-up Winnebago.
Runner-up Winnebago. There you go. And we went to the mountain biking world champs when they were held there once, and had a flipping brilliant time actually. So hello to Slovenia. Right, let us get along with it, shall we? David Pekarski is reminding me to make sure I've started the recording on the podcast. David, thank you so much for that. I have, largely thanks to BV reminding me to do so as well. So thank you.
Good.
And as always, thanks to BV for moderating and helping us out with this here event.
Yes,
we
and
are much
greetings to all
obliged.
of our Patreons on the podcast listeners.
Oh yes.
Thank you for all your love that you bring to the situation.
Yes, and wherever you should be travelling or not travelling at this moment, listening to this, be well. Right, let's get in. Let's get in to the Super Chai. Okay, first up this week in the Super Chats would be Matt McGrath. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
He says, great show on Friday.
It was a very fun show.
Yeah.
It was very, very fun.
I thought about another one we could do tomorrow if we're short of a second video.
Okay.
The first video we're going to do tomorrow is how to tame your Hot Rod Deluxe, because we've both had a couple of realisations about that just recently.
Yeah.
I thought we could do one based on nations. So discount the US.
Okay.
And maybe the UK.
Okay.
Just because if you get US, it's game over.
We could do the Ashes pedalboard thing. I'll have Australian pedals, and you can have UK pedals.
We could do that. We could do that.
Well, but yeah, let's stick it on that,
we
see
could
what
do
comes
that.
out.
I was thinking more like France, Germany, Sweden,
Oh, I like that.
Denmark,
Yeah,
Norway. Almost like, and maybe, I don't know, bits of the Far East, Japan.
We could have.
We can't include China because China makes everything for everybody.
Have you ever played Risk? We could have a European map and position everything and start invading.
I was thinking more of a bingo ping pong ball.
I mean, you can't argue with the ping pong ball format. It's a clear winner.
I'm surprised Netflix weren't on the phone, to be honest. Hello, you are clearly a televisual genius. Please come and create shows for us. Anyway, and then, because then there's a hint of randomness in it. So if you get Germany, for example, you've got to pick everything German.
Sure.
And for everything, here's where it gets complex. For everything not German that you pick, you get 1,000 points per thing that you pick.
Okay.
Up to a maximum of 6,000 points. That's to say 4 pedals, 1 amp, 1 guitar.
Right.
You then get deducted the number of miles between that capital city and the capital city of the country that you should be in. So if you chose...
That's number weighing.
That's number weighing. If you chose an American guitar...
Okay.
And let's say it's 4,200 miles between Washington and Berlin, for example.
Got it.
Then you get deducted 4,200 points.
Okay.
And that's number weighing exactly as you said.
Weighing. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's not that complex. It's just me explaining it.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And then, so we'd need to put all the countries in the hat where we have at least a pedal from.
Okay. And we can have a...
Brazil.
Yeah. Mexico. We've got...
The Democratic People's Republic of Wales.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on, Mac. It's not that hard.
Come on. Yeah. Okay. We'll have a look. I like it.
Anyway, Matt McGrath says, great show on Friday. Love the ending. Jam. I've had a UA Delverb for a bit now. Only gripe is the reverbs at a hi-fi sheen. That was tough with my setup. Had to use the app to find a darker verb that would work. Still 10 out of 10. Yeah, that's interesting. So...
I mean, the fact that you could go into the app and find a darker verb is winning.
Indeed winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you can do that. Because my first response was going to be, I wonder if it's just a buffer. Because I've done some work since then. I had a problem. It was just too bright for me. And figured out that both the Nordvang and the Delverb both have got quite the buffer in the bypass state. So I'm going to make a little video on that actually just to explain what that is and how you might get around it if you don't like it. Or indeed how to use it to your advantage if you do. But the fact, Matt, that you were able to tweak it to your liking is great. And presumably then that means you can beam that sound to the pedal and it won't forget it. Because the thing that's stopping me from using that stuff is if it goes on my board and I need my phone, it's not going to work.
Yeah, totally.
It's just not going to work because I got a PA, a desk, monitors, guitars, band to worry about. So having to look at my phone as well, no chance. We got another biscuit joke?
The voice of unreason says all the Brazilian pedals need to go on a thin strip down the middle of the pedal board.
Nice. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Mickey DTI 7. Glad you're liking it, Matt. I funnily enough, I liked it enough to want to delve further. And that, yeah, in a big way, actually. Mickey DTI 7. Good afternoon to all at TPS, and thank you. I love the show.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Is there any way I can blend the output from two 20-watt amps into a Fryette PS2A that turns output to a single 212 cab? And should I even do it at all?
So you want to blend the speaker output of your amplifiers into a single cab?
No, into the Fryette first.
Still no.
Yeah, always no.
Always no. Always the same. Just no.
Yeah, the only way you could do it is to have... Assuming the Fryette's got one input, you still can't do it. I was going to say, if you could find a way of loading the two amps using something like a 2 notes torpedo cab, for example, or anything else that will load the signal and then allow you to send a line out. But a line out's no good because the Fryette wants to see a speaker in, does it?
But what you'd what you'd have to do, you have to have both amps that have to have their own Fryette or something similar that will then send a line out to a mixer that needs to then go to a power amp into a speaker.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but it's incredibly complicated, and I think it's interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
My question is, why do you want to put the Fryette between... Oh, because it's a single 212 cab.
Right.
Yeah. So the other way you could do it is split the cab, wiring-wise, left and right, and run one through the Fryette into one speaker and the other amp through the other speaker, just without the Fryette involved. That would actually be better all around, because then you'd have wet-dry.
There you go.
There you go.
Jamie Brown says, Dan, are you quoting the British Office questionnaire scene when you say always the same? Absolutely. It's a scene that will live with me forever. It's absolutely hilarious. And the voice of unreason says, I'm coming here again. At least you chaps laugh at my jokes, unlike my wife, who is ironically Brazilian.
Ironically Brazilian. Tim Good. Hello, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Timmy be good. Legends. I finally drank the Kool-Aid at my gig last weekend and tried running wet dry with my Hot Rod DeVille and a Marshall JCM 800 combo. Yes, you did. He says, all I can say is thank you for saving me. My mind is still blown.
Yeah.
Well done, Tim.
Awesome, buddy.
Welcome.
That's great, mate.
Welcome to the gang. Wastel10, he says, hi, feet. Jeff McCurlin says he sets up the amp for the neck pickup and rolls back the tone knob with the bridge pickup to match the pickups. What do you think of this concept?
It's something that you do with the tone on the bridge pickup a lot. Or is it a different thing? Have I misheard?
Yeah, so what Dan is referring to is that I would use the bridge pickup on a Strat, bridge pickup tone control on a Strat, for example, to knock off some of that aggressive high, except when the gain goes up and except when it's loud, in which case it's all wide open. Mm-hmm. And since I've got the 61, which doesn't have the tone pot on the bridge pickup, I'm over it. So I don't bother with that anymore.
Oh, okay.
But it does make sense, because if you set your tone up for one pickup or the other pickup, then one is too dark or one is too bright. Now, Dan mitigates that with his telly a little bit by removing the tone control entirely from the neck pickup to the telly, and that does make it considerably brighter. Mm-hmm. It's really funny, because when I'm playing like in here, I'll be on the neck pickup quite a lot, and certainly for the Strat neck pickup thing, you know, the Stevie Ray thing or whatever, then that's the sound. When I'm at a gig, I'm probably 80% bridge pickup.
Yeah, right.
On a Gibson or a Strat or a whatever it is. And maybe onto the neck pickup for a solo or three, maybe position 2 for some rhythm stuff, but full neck pickup on a Gibson or a or a Strat for that matter for anything other than the Stevie Ray thing,
It's so funny.
and certainly not with gain.
I used to use positions 2 and 4 on the Strat all the time. I hardly ever use the middle position on the telly.
Yeah, I would. If I was playing a telly, I would.
Yeah,
it's just that rhythm sound. I love it.
But it's either there or there. I don't know. It's weird.
But yeah, it certainly makes sense. I think it probably comes down to, where is tone home for you. So if you tend to be on the neck pickup a lot, then that method makes a great deal of sense. But I'm a bridge pickup person at heart, and no matter what guitar it is, I want to hear it on the bridge pickup, and I want to hear it loud. So that's my happy place. Because the kind of music I play, which tends to be, not fluty neck pickup.
Sure.
Unless it's the SRV Strat thing, in which case I haven't got a lot of gain on. I've got the Tube Screamer set bright as hell, and probably the bright switch on the amp, and probably some other thing to make it brighter out of the neck pickup.
Jacques Butler says, Friday's show was brill.
Hello, Jack.
He says, Dan, there's something about that old Alnico rasp on your AC30 that just sounds incredible to me. You know what? It was so nice to hear that amp again.
It sounded magic, and that was reflected in the comments. It's nice when we get the feels here in the room, and it was a really magic thing with Gretchen the Vox, and that did seem to translate over the audio, which sometimes it just doesn't. So
yeah,
it was gratifying to read the comments, people saying how much they love that sound.
Yeah,
it's just tone of ages, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Good. Andrew Moore. Hello, Andrew. He says, hi, D&M. Have you used the Golden Boy or Broken Arrow much, the Jackson audio pedals? Where would you traditionally place it with a Centura, which is a Klon, a TS10 and a Morning Glory? Also, I just got an AB Baby, and I'm looking forward to trying Wet Dry.
Ah, thank you, buddy. We put the Golden Boy in a show when it came out, and it's a really great sounding thing. Joey is one of those rare players. Joey and Josh Smith have this amazing thing where they are just godlike on the instrument, but then the way their brain works when it comes to the technical application of pedals and stuff is like flipping amazing. And Joey can get around all the features on the Golden Boy. I've found it a bit tricky, but sonically it's fabulous. So all that to say, because it's such a massively flexible pedal, it all depends on how you're using it.
Yeah.
Traditionally, the Klon, in the way that we use it, that frequency type overdrive that goes, the Klon goes towards the end of the signal chain, the gain stages, because that we use that as a boost, adding a bit more mids. But again, you can coax that sort of stuff out of the Golden Boy. So it depends how you're using it.
You might want to watch the show Andrew called You're Asking the Wrong Question, which is, instead of saying which order should my pedals go in, it's saying what am I using them for?
Yeah. And
therefore, what do I need to know about gain stacking, essentially, in order to make a better decision on where they go. And then just try it. Dan's just said about the Klon, I always prefer it downstream, so it comes after fuzz, after other overdrives. But then I was messing around today, doing some stuff for a Strat trem video that's going to come up, vibrato, sorry, not trem. And I was using the Nordvang 83, which I really like, by the way. And I had it before the Kingsley Page.
Oh, yeah.
And it just sounds ace.
Yeah.
And I had all the things in the wrong order because I had to throw a board together really quickly, and they were all in the wrong order. And I thought that's fine because I probably won't stack them anyway. Ended up stacking them, and it's like, oh, man. So...
But see, the
you've got to try it.
You've got to try it, absolutely, because the Page throws everything into... You can put that thing anywhere. As a boost, it's amazing. As a sort of low-gain dynamic overdrive, it's flippin' amazing. So all of these pedals will have they'll have a sweet spot, but they'll have 3 or 4 sweet spots depending on what rig they're in, the guitars going into them and how you play. So you just have to get your hands dirty with this stuff. There is no substitute for it. But if you watch that show, it'll give you some ideas.
Yeah. It's called You're Asking the Wrong Question, I think. So yeah, I would say if you're using it boosty in order to make things thicker and fatter, put it near the front of the signal chain. If you're using it boosty to make things louder for a solo boost, put it to the end of the signal chain. And if it's just one of your gain stages as like a mid-level overdrive, that's where it starts to get really hard and you've got to make a decision. Just know that the more gainy you're running it, the less you want to be boosting into that. So the more gainy you're running it, probably the further towards the front of the signal chain you want it, because if it's running gainy and overdriving a lot, if you then hit it with something else, it's just going to fart out and become indistinct and possibly even quieter, which nobody wants.
Nobody wants that.
Except every sound engineer alive at the moment. Most sound engineers. Sorry, I'll just correct myself there. Honestly, walked into this flipping gig, right? What do I hear? What's the first thing I hear?
Kick drum.
Kick drum. Absolutely punching me in the face.
Right.
Lovely, nice sounding kick drum. About 15 dB too loud.
Okay. Yeah.
The next thing I hear is the and crash and bang of the rest of the kit. Half decent sounding snare, to be fair, but I then feel the bass, which is good. That's kind of what I want from bass. And then I detect this fizzy rasp, which I presume was a guitar sound.
Right.
And I look over and there we are. There's the fizzy rasp.
Okay.
I'm like, swap those two things around. That kick drum wants to be 15 dB louder and the guitar wants to be
lower,
and the guitar wants to be 25 dB louder.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, when Paul comes up to play with his band, he's like 10 times the volume of the previous guitar player.
And sounds epic.
And sounds utterly epic.
Yeah. See, I was going to have a chat to you about this because there's a show, I don't know what it is because, it's worth a discussion, but I went to see a few bands recently and each guitar player in each of these bands had a really fundamental problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Just, I'll have this sorted in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Literally 5 minutes.
And I just think there's a video that says if we could go through like 3 or 4 really base level things, because I think what happens is, and I was messing around with my Waz Air headphones right the other day. I'm practicing and it's great, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is really fun. And sat here just in the morning, it's really still and just playing, it's really lovely. And then I just listened to that sound. It's like it was all lovely, fat bottom end, crisp top end, and very polite mid-range.
Yeah.
Because I'm playing at home and it's fun. And it's like, now if I took that sound and went to a gig and turned it up to a point I could be to try and be heard, it would just be dreadful.
Yeah.
And I think that certainly one of these guys had done that thing. One of these guys, his amp was just way too quiet and it was cranked and it was just farting.
Well, because the other thing you do is, because it's got to be so quiet, you roll the gain on so you can get a bit of sustain and feel, but then all of your natural harmonic feedback that starts to happen between guitar and amp and you is gone. And I just don't know how you live without that. Like, okay, these are first world problems, right? But if I play and I don't have that, I let a note and it does the natural bloom thing, maybe it starts to feed back a bit. There's a whole load of harmonic information in that that's just gone when it's too quiet. And
while we were at Windsor, sorry, I know we've got to crack on, but while we were at Windsor, they had a festival across where we're staying was on the Thames, and literally across the Thames was a little festival. And we thought, oh, this would be great. And they had some amazing bands on, like just sounded really great. Really, it's like super professional, and it was really interesting because I say it's a small thing. There's a few thousand people at this little festival, and some of the singers were incredible. Anyway, and I'm thinking, what happens with musicians when they go from this level of going into the venue and seeing what I saw, and everyone bar 5 people had walked out from these bands that I went to see, to these bands that are playing in front of thousands of people sounding amazing. Where is that transition? Where is the knowledge that goes, if I do this?
Oh, I see.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
There's a guitar player who's playing with it's basically like a 90s cover band. His sound was great. Little amp, not too much gain. And he just it was just like really great.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a few fundamental things that you get right. Elevates everything.
Yeah. As much as we're picking the bones out of it here, what I've come to realise is being out and about a bit more just recently is there's no shortage of music going on.
No, there really isn't.
And you try and book a good bass player and a drummer for your next gig. See if you can find them.
Yeah.
Because they're busy.
Absolutely.
So
try and book a drummer that can sing.
Yeah. So it's
on a Tuesday.
It's heartening to know that music is still, because Dan and I got out of it massively for a while, and we just weren't really going to gigs and weren't playing any gigs, and you can get a bit grumpy about that. But it's all happening.
It is, and I love it. It's really funny because Liv and I yesterday, they were playing some tunes. We were out in the back garden having a boogie. It was just, I love it. It's so much fun when people are up there doing their thing. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's great.
Carmine Anastasio says, greetings gents, ever thought about reviewing fractals, Kempers or helixes with cabinets and how they compare to valve amps? Not really, Carmine. It's not our thing. Pretty much every other channel on YouTube uses that stuff. We're one of a very few now that still plugs in amps and mics them and all of that, and that's kind of our thing. Dan and I have used all of that stuff. I worked on guitar magazines for many years and had to deal with it. Dan has to deal with it with pro bands and stuff, and we just we
plugged into that stuff last week. Actually,
we love our traditional tube amps, and in our opinion anyway, that there is no comparison. By the time you've got it recorded, produced and all that, there's a different case to make perhaps, but actually stood in the room with it, there is no comparison. So no, we're not really interested in that. With apologies, there's plenty of other channels on the tube where you can hear that stuff day in, day out.
Yeah. And one of my things is, if you're going to go to the extent of having a cabinet and power stage and all that stuff, then you may as well have an amp.
Yeah.
There's, I think Lee and Pete were doing some stuff with all that tech last week. There's so much video on that stuff now.
Yeah.
There's some more stuff from Rabia.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a place for that stuff. We just really, when I plugged my old 61 AC30 in last week, and I get that sense from it, it's like,
there is no comparison.
There's
literally no comparison. Yeah. So not for us, but we totally get that it's a sensible choice for a lot of other people. But we don't. That pedal show isn't about being sensible. It's not about value for money. It's not about anything other than the fact, if we don't do it like this, we just stop doing it because we only do it for fun. There's no other reason.
Yeah.
No compromise ever.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. Moon says, but you can apply all the things D&M teach to a Helix, Kemper, or Cortex, etc. Yeah, actually, that's a good shout. The fundamentals are the same.
Yeah.
How you then bring it is up to you. But yeah, the fundamentals. Good, nice point, Moon. Nicely made. Thank you.
Nathan Lundy Maynard says, it's all happening on a TPS t-shirt. I like that.
Yeah.
It's very good. We got some new Schwangtastic t-shirts in the shop.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Bit summery.
You've been working out, looking a bit buff.
I haven't. I do my 20 press-ups and 20 sit-ups every day,
Very good.
and that's about it.
Nice.
Thanks, mate. I think the last 2 weeks of complete full-on has meant I've been burning a lot of energy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and
That's where it goes, man. It's like,
significant.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, Ethan Kaplan. Hello, Ethan.
Hello, Ethan.
He says, do you have thoughts or advice on using a looper while jamming with a live band? Oh, mate. Was wanting to loop a few bars while playing and solo over them, but the timing always seems to be off. Thanks.
So, if you're going to use a looper, A, be really good at using a looper. B, make sure that the looper can be heard, and make sure that the drummer can hear where you're starting and where the loop finishes.
Yeah. The drummer has no option but to play to your loop.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, unless the only way to do it is if you're all synced to MIDI clock, as it were, and you're all on a BPM, and your looper is locked to that BPM, and it will cut off after, if your loop is 8 bars, it's MIDI synced to 118 BPM or whatever it is, which is synced to everyone else's click in their ears, and it will only stop. So it'll essentially quantize, because there are some loopers that can do that. They will quantize to whatever they're being fed, or indeed they will send the feed elsewhere, I think I'm right in saying. That's the only way you're going to do it, if it needs to be rhythmic. Now, the other way you do it is if you're Ed from Radiohead and the actual, 4 beats to the bar thing isn't quite so important.
Yeah, totally unimportant. It becomes about creating a sound with the loop, and he'll do a lot of really fast loops and tweak it and stuff.
So it's textural at that point.
Exactly.
It's not keeping anyone in time.
Exactly.
But yeah, doing a live loop in time, your drummer needs to be able to it needs to be perfectly quantized to the beats, to the bars, because I don't know about you, but every time I do a loop, it's always like half a beat too long or too short. So it's got to be quantized to exactly the length of however many bars, and the drummer has got to be able to hear it and play to it and nothing else.
When I used to do the Bipolar Bears with Dougie, the acoustic thing, there were certain songs that I would set up a loop to start, and then Dougie would come in. So it's doing it like that.
He could lock to
that.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it in the middle of it, it's really, really tricky.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. But good for you. Keep going with it and find a way, because if you can achieve it, it will be so rewarding to be able to do it.
Yep. Paul Matulovic says, is Dan still on a forced BJJ hiatus? I'm back training now.
That's why
So
he's already injured.
Injuries, straight back in. But it's been really, really awesome to be back.
Yeah.
I did miss out on a session with what's his name? Oh, flippin' heck. Every now and then they'll have a teacher come through the school, and Hoist Gracie popped in a few weeks ago, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it. Hoist Gracie was the first winner of the very first ever UFC.
Ah, wow.
Yes. Where they used to have like 4 fights a night. No weight categories, no time limits, no rules. It was... So yeah. Anyway.
Whatever turns you on, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Bobbler42. Bobbler42 says, as I am about to graduate as an extra mature student,
Nice.
congrats, I'd like to make a convolution reverb of the hall of the block of flats I've been moulding in when I leave. Any mic suggestions? He says, what about mic suggestions? Second Sex 1, which presumably is a mic, Lewitt Pencil, or Out Else. Okay. Right. First of all, is it a stereo convolution or is it mono? Because if it's stereo, presumably you need 2 mics. I would use a figure of 8 large diaphragm condenser,
Nice.
and I'd put it in the middle of the room.
And what does that do?
Well, actually, what you could do, if you're going to go to the hassle of taking a convolution, to do the convolution, for anyone unaware, you get some software and you say, listen to this reverb, and then it turns it into noughts and ones, which you can then use as a reverb on something else. It's basically how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would be really cool, actually, is to do a whole bunch. So do one in a corner, do one in the centre of the room, do one at the front of the room, and do one at the back of the room.
Yeah.
And they will all be very, very different
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah, totally.
Figure of 8 mic, sorry to answer your question, Dan. So if you think about a polar pattern of a microphone, let me get a microphone. Bear with.
The Amateur's original music says, think they've gone off topic. It's, yeah, what we do. Welcome to the show. Okay.
What's the matter?
Nothing at all.
Dan, you'll have to repeat what I say in case they can't hear me. This
Okay.
is a large diaphragm condenser microphone.
I'm pretty sure that, yeah, they can hear you fine. Look at the meters.
Mic's back there, mate.
Yeah, I know, but looking at the meters.
Okay. Look at the meters on the right.
Okay, all right.
See?
Yep.
It's about 20 dB more. You've got there.
Okay.
This is a large diaphragm condenser microphone.
This is a large diaphragm condenser microphone.
Assuming our sound is coming this way,
Assuming our sound is coming this way.
this would be the kind of pattern you could expect off a normal microphone.
This would be the kind of pattern you could expect off a normal microphone.
But because certain large diaphragm condensers can pick up front and back,
Because certain large condenser microphones can pick up front and back.
you can pick up that way and this way.
You can
If
pick up
you-
that way and this way.
Looked at it from the top, you could draw a figure 8, right?
Everyone's saying they can hear you just fine.
Okay, figure 8. Well, draw an 8 on the top of that, with this being the centre of the 8. And that would be the polar pickup of that particular microphone. And I would have thought that would be quite useful for a reverb,
Right.
because you're hearing it from everywhere.
Yeah.
But then,
Are they out of phase, those two sounds? They'd have to be, surely, because there's only one diaphragm in there.
it's a good question, and I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could do that. This, having said all that, this is not a. This only does front facing. This doesn't do back facing, but
Right.
they kind of look a bit like that. The other thing you could do is try a mid-side arrangement, where you get one face forward like that, and you get one essentially like that on top of one another, and then you do mid-side processing to get a really awesome stereo image. There's a lot of things you could do, but
Yeah.
I would say get 2 mics, and then in a way it doesn't really matter what they are, because then it's down to positioning, treatment, post-processing and all of that.
Positioning, man. I remember an old engineer I used to work with in Sydney was hired to do an old-timey recording of a brass band. He had 3 ribbon mics to do this 40-piece band.
Yeah.
And took a week to set the mics up. Once set the mics up, they were recording for like an hour. But it was all about the tiny repositioning of the mics. And the recording is absolutely incredible. You can hear everything.
Yeah.
But that's what the engineers used to do. They used to take the time. And when we're talking to the guys at Abbey Road,
Yeah.
and they're talking about the effort that goes into getting the mics in the right spot,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
I met a nice guy at the aforementioned Paul Stacey gig at the weekend called Tristan, who used to be an engineer at Abbey Road and does various engineering and stuff like that. He lives locally, and I have promised him I am going to hound him for information and learning,
Awesome.
because I just find all that stuff fascinating.
You're naturally good at that stuff. You've got a really good ear for that stuff.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but when you watch an actual professional doing it,
Yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
just
It is incredible.
it's another game. and inspiring, you know. So
Yeah.
Tristan, expect me to be bothering you.
Joseph Brian Garcia says, "Hi Dan and Mick, just saying hello from Melbourne, Australia. Been watching your show for years now. More power to you, and cheers, Mick. You are looking good and my guitar idol."
Oh, bless you. That's kind of you to say. Thank you very much.
And G Bar says, "Dan is now the true Dalai Lama."
They're coming in. Jam Boys are coming in. They're going to be here Wednesday and Thursday. They're on a bit of a UK schlep, as it were. And we're going to film with them on Thursday. We're going to do something different and unusual. We're not just going to sit here and interview them because they've decided that would be boring.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wouldn't be boring.
No, it'd
but
be amazing.
so we're going to have a bit of fun with the Jam Pedals guys.
Has Giannis bought any of his
Well, I
stuff?
rather hope so. Otherwise, we're going to be making a board for him to... So we're going to jam, basically. We're going to jam with Jam.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamming with
Yeah.
jamming with get jamming.
Yeah. Get jamming.
Get jamming.
Because Ilias says he knows his way around a kit. So
Oh wow.
we're going to jam.
Awesome.
We're going to make some
All right.
noises. Gordon Rankin says, dual pencils. Oh, no, hang on. It was somebody else. Sorry, Gordon. Somebody said, oh, it was Joel Harbrial. Joel, thank you for this. He said, Zoom makes great handheld stereo recorders that can work well for this. That's brilliant. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go off and get one to show you. You've probably seen them, but...
Ranzer says the obvious thumbnail title, Jam Session. The Jam Jams, very good.
These things are really, really good.
Ah, wonderful.
So this is a Zoom H6. All the original pedal shows were recorded entirely on that, right? It's got 6 inputs and these XY mics at the top. This is a Zoom H1N, which also has an XY stereo mic configuration on the
That's snazzy. Show me that. What's that one? What's the difference?
top. This has got 4 extra XLRs.
Okay.
That's just the...
Just there. Okay.
Yeah, you can plug in a stereo
Mark in there. Okay.
TRS, so you could get 2 labs into it, for example.
Right.
Um,
That's very cool.
but they're great, and the quality of the recordings off the scale, and for doing something like a convolution, you don't need, or I'm going to say you don't need like super high headroom preamps for 125 dB off a guitar speaker. So something like that takes so much of the hassle out of all of it. I would highly recommend this stuff for all kinds of field and location recording. This thing, when did 2015?
Yeah.
8 years ago.
It's still epic.
That did our first 2 years of TPS, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. And I used it yesterday for a vlog.
Yeah. I still use mine all the time.
Epic.
It's really,
Epic
really great.
thing. Zoom H6.
Yeah. Someone is sorry, I missed who said this, but someone's saying I need some help. I'm the only person in the band holding out on IEMs, in-ear monitors, because I hate them. I can't use them. What can be done? And I think that is it's a question that happens all the time. I'm finishing off my vlog that I did with Dave Kilminster. So I built the rig for Dave Kilminster, who is Roger Waters' guitar player, and went and saw him at the O2, and so I filmed the building of the rig, and then I interviewed him at the O2, and it was fascinating, right? Because it was more about what you need to do to prepare for a gig like that. When you're playing some of the most iconic guitar parts in the world, ever recorded, how do you prepare? And you know what's really interesting? He said you can't.
Yeah, right.
He said, if you play this, he said, it's the simplest thing in the world. He said, now add 50,000 people on a smoke machine, and it becomes one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. Then he said, now stand on the cherry picker and go up the top of the wall, in Chicago at like minus 10 degrees. He said, there's just nothing you can do to prepare for it. It's really fascinating interview. But he said that, so it's always been loud amps, on stage, but the latest tour they've done has been in the round. So they've had all the amplifiers, all the speakers in ISO cabs under the stage. And he's had his first rehearsal with in-ear monitors. He looked down and said there was blood all over the guitar.
Oh, I remember you saying about this, yeah.
And he was trying to get a bit more out of it. He just couldn't, and ended up cutting, So It's really interesting, and I think it's worthy of investigation.
It's about the greater good, isn't it? It's about what is the better result for the band at the end of the day. And if that's IEMs and that helps, what's it going to help? Potentially it'll help harmonies being tuned for singing. It might mean a better out front mix. It might mean all kinds of things if you get it right. And if that's for the benefit of the show and people's enjoyment of the show, then maybe it's worth looking at, and you just got to stick with it and find something that works.
Are there not such things as open back IEMs?
I think they'd have to be so loud that you'd be doing yourself hearing damage
That's
to get the internal. But even, some like Ainsley, our mate Ainsley Lister, he moved to IEMs a long time ago just because the monitors are always crap and he can't travel with a monitor guy, and this way he can at least control his own monitoring for singing.
Right.
But he takes his own mixer with him, so he comes out of he's got this little rig where his vocal mic and his guitar mics go into his own mixer behind his amp. They drive his monitor mix, and the front of house takes a feed off of that.
Okay.
So he says, you just take your feed from here, mate. I'm happy.
Right.
So he's got total control over it, but he said it has contributed to hearing loss, ironically enough. So
The Indian monitors
the
have?
IEMs have contributed because he's got to have them so loud. Whereas actually using wedges and amps on stage these days, because we're not really playing at 126 dB anymore.
Sorry.
Unless you're Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, of course. So we had this conversation that, again with Paul Stacey all the time, and he says it's obviously has a lot to do with the individual and how susceptible they are to hearing damage, but it's not. He swears that loud guitars. He's been doing loud guitars his whole life, and he's never had an issue. I haven't. You haven't. Not to say that there aren't days where it's been really loud. It's like that was a bit hurty.
Yeah.
But if you've got a kick drum and people screaming,
it's snare drum, cymbals, industrial noise. It's all those things that are going to contribute, and they are contributors. In fact, I'm going to do a show or a podcast or something with the guy from Minuendo. So Minuendo make these really nice headphones, and they sent us some to try. And they're one of the only in-ears that I can kind of happily use, and they don't do my head in, which a lot of them do. So, but he's an audiologist and he understands this stuff. So I stood on the NAMM show floor and talked to him for quite a while. And he sort of put me straight on a few things.
Oh, let's do that.
About all of that.
That'd be so interesting.
And it's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting.
What my bugbear is, if I go to a gig and everyone's on in-ears and it's a silent stage, I can hear the drums on the stage.
Yeah.
And if you go to the front of the stage and you're on the side of the PA, it's like, I can hear the drums. It's happened a couple of times, actually. I'm like, what song are they singing? Oh, hang on. Let me just get back a little bit and see if I can. Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, so
it's an interesting show.
So the end of the comment I was going to make is that if it is for the greater good and the band's performance is better and the out front experience is better, then sure, you're going to have to find a way to start loving them. If, like a lot of amp modelling, it's purely for convenience because it's cheaper, the sound person likes it, then you have got a decision to make about whether you want that or not, whether you want to compromise to that level in order just for commerce. And it might be that that's the reality of it and you've got no choice. Or you might say, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go and do something else. Scott Gaylor says, I hate them, IEMs, but there's not a single gig now that I don't need them. It's the new way.
Right.
So I suppose what you're saying, Scott, is that there's no wedges available and everyone else is either silent or quiet. So you can't play the gig because you can't hear people? Is that what you mean?
Must be.
Because I can't... That's the only way I could imagine you having to have them is if there's no ambient sound on stage. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but if I was in that world, I would just stop playing.
Isn't there?
I would have
you
my
just have
acoustic
your-
guitar and go and sing and play. That's what I would do.
Couldn't you just have like? Oh, I don't know. I think there's got to be a.
I just don't understand how you replace the acoustic feedback and resonance and harmonics of the sound a band makes. How do you... Where does that go if that's not happening? All you get is essentially, why don't you just play the record at that point?
I think it's worthy of investigation.
And don't get me wrong, I get that the vast majority of touring bands are doing it. I get that is the reality, exactly as you say, Scott. But I've got a question: at what cost? I don't know. Yeah, so a couple of people saying there are IEMs that you can mix in the ambient venue sound with the in-ears. Apparently ASI Audio, according to BV, make them. They're very expensive. So yeah, exactly as you say. I wonder if that's a bit like the opposite of noise cancelling headphones.
Sure.
So you know how noise cancelling
Yeah.
headphones work.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's using that technology but kind of in reverse.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Because it's not to say that you can't have, if the goal is just getting rid of the monitors on stage, right?
I don't think it is that. I think it's getting rid of a majority of on stage sound.
Well, then that would be the end for me.
Yeah, I'd be done. I'm not.
But
doing
if it's not that, if it's like singers having what they want in their ear and being able to control that to some level, and that's cool.
Well, it makes absolute sense.
But I couldn't do it if it meant not being able to interact with the other members of the band in an acoustically. Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's
Scott
one...
says, yeah, every gig he gets now is that.
right.
Wow, that's really interesting. That is. Yeah. Really
Basil
interesting.
Tiffany says I end up turning in-ears up too loud. Yeah. Wow.
Well, Ains was saying that was the cause of his part of the cause of his hearing loss.
Wow.
Oh well, I guess that debate will run and run and run. Iron Wolf 1776, hello.
Hello, mate.
Says, I was wondering if you tried the Warm Audio Centavo clone yet. I'm really enjoying it, and I'd be interested in your opinions. So, you know Warm Audio, who do nice remakes of various bits of classic studio gear. So they do like 1176 compressors and 1076 preamps and stuff. They've done a clone.
Oh wow.
In the right box.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I can only assume, like the Centura ones, the Seriatone ones, like all the other clones, that it's exceptionally good. That circuit is not a secret anymore, so it should be entirely possible to completely recreate it. Magic diodes notwithstanding.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got to say, the one in the Nordvang 83.
Yeah.
I like every bit as much as my original clone.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, I'm sure it's brilliant. I was a bit, when I saw it, I was like, oh. But then I get it. You know, if you can't get a clone anymore. You can get all kinds of clones. So I get it. If the original thing's not available, then why not?
Yeah.
I've looked at some of their studio gear, and thought, yeah, and then thought, no.
Right.
Something just stops me from. I'm never going to be able to afford a Dumble, right? So, 2-Rock TS1.
Yeah.
I'm
amazing.
never going to be able to afford a Burst.
Right.
As long as there's a hole in my rear. So I got an R7. But I probably could save up and sell a few things to get a couple of 1076 preamps.
Right.
So that's what I would do.
Sure. Yeah. It's where you put the value, right?
Yeah. Well, that's another great question, because the value is there. When you buy that stuff, you never lose on it.
Sure.
If you keep it for a minute and you don't buy it at a stupid price. But yes, no, it would be interesting to hear. They certainly look very nice. Scent of a wheelchair pillow. Says, I don't do it often, but I love music while I'm high. It's legal in Denver, but then I can't play. Have you ever had to deal with this? Suggestions.
So what are we dealing with? Being
high and trying to play.
Right. So I had a horrific experience being high when I was 17. And I'll never forget it. I'd lost all the feeling in my hands. Couldn't remember chords. Just found the whole thing. Basically, a friend was having a smoke and he said, try some. I thought, yeah, okay. And I did it a couple of times and thought, oh, this is really fun. And then like the third time or something, just had a really, really bad experience, specifically while trying to play guitar. It's like, no, that's me. I'm done.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, couldn't do it.
Yeah, not high for me, but drunk a lot. Definitely played way too drunk, way too much. And it's not good. Can't do it. If there are any neurology people on, or people who understand the chemical effect of this stuff, you might be able to throw some light on it. As a layperson making an assumption, I assume that these things work in a similar way. They kind of relax you, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever, depending on what drug it is, of course. Which presumably removes a few inhibitions, gets you out of psychological time a bit, and leaves you slightly more open to having your mind free enough to experience things like listening. And that was the argument for LSD. Funnily enough, I watched the Peter Green, there's a documentary about Peter Green and his experience with LSD, and it was the Grateful Dead's sound guy, I think,
right,
whose wife used to make it.
Oh, okay.
And they used to hand it out at the front of Dead concerts, according to the documentary anyway, so I hope I'm not saying anything out of order there. In the belief that if the band were tripping and the front row of the audience was as well, they'd all have the same experience. And of course, we've got enough casualties now to realise that, as fun as that might have been for a few people, it actually, it destroyed a few people's lives.
Yeah, right. Well, didn't Peter Green, wasn't that part of his downfall?
It was his downfall.
Right.
And that's not to, I don't mean to say that it was the fault of the Grateful Dead sound guy. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, using drugs in that way. It was a trip to Munich, I think it was, in Germany,
right,
where Peter had his kind of over the edge trip as far as the documentary was concerned anyway. And I say again, this is all in the documentary. So yeah, I don't know how it works chemically, but maybe it makes you more open to receiving.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
I like having a few drinks.
Sure.
I always like having a few drinks, and I definitely relax a bit more when I've had a few drinks. And I like listening to music, and I like playing up to about 2 to 3 drinks.
Yeah, but after that it gets a bit hairy.
Yeah, I can't play very well after that. So
Sure.
you sort of lose it a bit. Anyway, go easy with that stuff. Scent of a wheelchair pillow, please. Ranzer.
G'day, mate.
I unfortunately, I do know a number of people with cannabis-induced psychosis.
Right.
I know people with horrific problems with alcohol as well. I'm not singling it out. I'm just saying, just be aware that psychosis thing is just it's heartbreaking to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Ranzer, D&M and B and K and H&R. Fantastic show on Friday. Love the challenge episodes. Always great fun. More would be most welcome. I'm in New York City next week. Do you have any cool store recommendations? Manny's, if it's still there.
I think Manny's is still there.
There's a place down on Bleecker Street, which is pretty cool, as I remember. But we're the wrong people to ask.
Yeah. Was it 34th Street Guitars? Something like that.
Yeah. So hopefully someone in the chat will be able to answer that. I don't know.
30th Street Guitars.
Yeah.
There you go. That is a really good store.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if Manny's is there anymore, No doubt someone is typing furiously as we speak. Microdosing mushrooms is nice, says Henning Hesse. Yeah, I know a couple of people that use that for depression, actually. Which is kind of interesting.
Eagle Ray Rob says music is the drug.
Yeah.
I hear you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Justin Baylog. Hey, Justin, nice to hear from you, buddy. Says he just want to say. Play Tilt Hurts. Yeah, you probably need to watch the documentary. He's saying something to do with occult and LSD. I don't know. I did have the pleasure of meeting and interviewing Peter many years later in the 90s. And it was quite an interesting conversation on many levels.
Cheese.
Yeah, cheese did come into it, yeah.
Norm's Rare Guitars, says Angus McLennan.
That's not in New York.
Where's Norm's?
Not in New York.
No, okay.
Is it?
I don't know.
Oh, that's a really good question. I thought it was in the south somewhere. It's in Tarzana, California.
Right.
So it's in California. Yeah, completely nowhere near New York.
Rudy's in Soho, says Carson Green.
Oh, Rudy's.
Rudy.
Soho's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's very cool.
The last time I was in New York, I spent most of my time in Soho. Had a nice time there.
Yes.
Yes, Raf Ratus. Hello, Raf. He says, hi, DNM. Fun Friday show. Got me thinking, what are some of your favourite dual effects pedals? Would any pedals from Friday make it to the list? Yeah, the Nordvang is making it to my list at the moment.
Yeah.
But interestingly, we've also got the other one. So the 83 is a like a Klon style and a Blues Breaker style, I think. And the other one, which I think is the number one, forgive me if I've got this the wrong way around, is a Klon style and a TS10 style. And I think I might prefer that.
Right.
Very Mayer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might prefer that. TS10 being a sort of slightly higher fidelity, less compressy version of a Tube Screamer.
Cool.
So, yeah, that one would. I really like the Delverb, I've got to say. If I can just solve the buffer issue,
yeah,
I think that's a winner.
Awesome.
Because one of our favourites is the Collider, the Source Audio Collider as a dual pedal.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Jam Pedals Ripley Fall, which is a chorus and a phaser, would be another favourite dual pedal.
Magic.
Any faves?
Yep, the Dane, I think, is a dual pedal, is great.
D&M Drive, of course.
D&M Drive. King of Tone, of course. Yeah. The Ripley Fall, though, is like as a dual modulation pedal. Gee, it's magic.
Yeah. Really,
Whenever
really
that's
great.
on the board and it gets kicked on, it's just wonderful.
Chorus and phaser in one, that is. Brian Carpenter. Hello, Brian. He says, all my drive pedals have the same knob settings. Boss SD1, Earthquaker Special Cranker, Wampler Moxie. Am I underutilising them or are they different enough as it is?
They're very different pedals, so...
Yeah, if you set them all to 2 o'clock, then they're all going to sound completely different, so that's completely fine.
Yeah.
And I would be fully saying that 2 o'clock on all of those pedals is utterly the best sound from any of them.
Yeah, but you say that about every pedal.
And it's true.
Yeah, it's true. And it's true.
Actually,
rarely is it not true.
The only time it's always true of overdrives, because it's not totally dumb, right? Because up after halfway on an overdrive pedal's volume knob is where the fun starts to happen. And quite often we never crank them up that high because they're making the amp too loud. But the tonal change with the volume knob up a bit on an overdrive pedal is quite significant.
Yeah.
On most overdrive pedals. Yeah. Tone, it's always about there, isn't it? Not too trebly, not too bassy.
Yeah, you've got to have that mix where with everything.
I mean, overdrive, there's some pedals I wouldn't have my drive up that much on a drive pedal. And the control that it's never true for, literally never, the exception to the rule, if you will, is the delay level in the delay pedal.
Right, there you go.
I don't think there's a delay pedal I've got that has the mix any higher than 9 o'clock.
Right. Nice.
Because it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Too much.
So I think that's good. Of course, the other thing you could do is find where the pedals sound best using a blindfold. Just tweak them up so they sound great. Remove the blindfold, take the knobs off, and put them all on at 2 o'clock. Then you literally can't go wrong.
There you go. That's very good.
Yeah, and
That's
then if you do sit on any kind of spectrum, when you look down at your board, everything will be lined up and right, so it won't be problematic.
Very good.
I think that's wise, Dan.
Yeah, it's very wise.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
If
I love
Eckhart
that
Tolle
idea.
was here, he'd ding the little bell now so we could all think about it.
Put the knobs back on and set them all to 2 o'clock.
Ding! Yeah. Michael Giliberto. Hi, Michael. He says, thanks, D&M, for Friday's fun. I've been rewatching old shows about setting up one's rig. Always seem to find or be reminded of a bit or TPS wisdom that I can use. Best wishes to all in TPS land.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Michael. We are but conduits. People tell us stuff. We share it,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
We learn stuff. We share it. We are but conduits for the flying information in the universe.
I like that. That's very good.
Yeah. Songs, innit? That's what songs are. You just grab them
Yeah.
if you're open enough.
That's nice. I used to...
They're all out there.
There's a songwriter I used to work with, a really wonderful songwriter, and she would say that the melodies are just all in the air, just all floating around in the air. And the air was different for me. It was just smog or something. But she would find them in the air. So I was watching a video with what are the guys that started Patreon, the band.
Yeah, literally no idea.
Anyway, they one of the guys in this band started Patreon, but it's like not the Fantastic Flyers, whatever they're called, but that sort of a thing.
Okay.
And they're playing some groove, and she's just singing all these melodies. She just, like, all day she'll sing all these melodies, and she just hears them and sings them. I think it's the keyboard player's wife or partner, and all the rest of the band. There's amazing musicians just going, "How do you do that?" She's, "Oh, I just hear them." Just incredible melodies, like all day long. It's amazing.
Speaking of incredible melodies,
Scary Pockets. The Scary
Oh,
Pockets.
yes.
Yeah, really great.
did they start Patreon?
I think the keyboard player is one of the guys
wow.
that started Patreon. Thank you, Jay Foster Guitar.
I watched Jacob Collier. Well, I watched half of the first song of Jacob Collier's set at Glastonbury,
Right.
talking about amazing musicians and harmony. Man, did you watch it?
No. But I've seen loads of his stuff. Yeah, how do you even begin to think about that stuff?
It was the on-stage representation of a Jackson Pollock painting.
very good.
But actually, that's not even a very good description, because there's an element of randomness in Jackson Pollock. It looked like a brain exploding.
Right.
Is what it looked like.
Yep. Yeah.
Talking about amazing musicians and harmony and
Yeah,
melody. and
it's
stuff.
absolutely incredible.
Scott Pickett says, Mick, did you get a picture of you with long hair? I found a copy of Guitarist Mag, but you had an executive hairstyle. No, I forgot. I've totally forgotten. Sorry, I will dig one out of me with long hair. I know where they are. They're at home in a folder.
Okay.
So. Yeah. Apologies. Oh, that's interesting. My thing has gone funny. Joe Halliday. Hello, Joe. Hello, Sailor. Joe joined us on an experience day a couple of weeks back, and it was great to meet you, Joe.
Yeah.
He says, how on earth did Dan manage to get tones from such an eclectic mix of pedals? Every pedal has an application, but with that said, are there any you are hoping not to have to pair together?
Oh, great question.
Well, 2 reverbs, I think, was one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Not really. Only because whatever turns up, that's the fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, yeah, 2 reverbs set up. What can we do with that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I almost think the opposite is true. So rather than not wanting them, actually getting something completely bonkers. Let's say you've got a ring modulator and a sub and up.
yeah.
And it's like, what on earth am I going to do with this? But what you're immediately going to be doing is being released from any sort of preconceived approach to sound and tone, and being in a true experimental frame of mind where you have to make something from this. And that actually was the spirit of the show. The fact I ended up with a fuzz of flipping clon and a delay was a bit sad, really. Maybe we should mitigate that in the future. But
Well, no, it's all down to the mistress of chance.
she is a cruel
She's
mistress.
a cruel mistress.
So yeah,
She's a big fan of UA, though.
yeah, she is. She likes UA. Loads of people thought that was a fix, by the way. It's like,
No, couldn't be.
I don't think we're not organised enough to fix things.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I wouldn't want to see. A lot of fuzzes altogether could be a real challenge, because getting that to work and getting the noise down would be tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we should do it again and see what pops out of the hat, as it were. Fender Jeff, hello Fender.
Hello, Fender.
I struggled with my Strat for 10 plus years. Mick, thank you for your Strat vlogs, especially not floating the bridge, a revelation and a game changer. And without TPS, I wouldn't have known to use a TS style OD into a Fender amp. I'm beyond grateful.
That's awesome.
Nice one, Jeff. Glad it's working for you. I have just finished shooting, anyway, I haven't edited it yet, a video on setting up Strat vibratos. A lot of people have asked for it. I mean, the information's all out there online, but nevertheless, we've been asked for it a lot, and I've been asked for it specifically a lot. So I do talk about the flat to the bridge, the flat to the body setup. I also talk about balancing it. I also talk about the 2-point trem, how it differs from the 6-screw, position relative to the body, how you set the tension, how you make sure it's in tune, all of that. Just finished it. I learned some stuff while I was doing it, actually, which was instructive.
Nice.
So hopefully it will be helpful. What is really cool about it is, for years and years and years, I did not want the thing to float, because I can't play in the way that I would normally play. Did a gig last Saturday night. The 61's been set up to float for ages. Literally the day before, I'm like extra spring in on the body. I can't play it how I want to play it at a gig if it's not flat on the body. However, for being in here and trying different things and learning some new styles and stuff, having it floating is really cool. So maybe like you, for years I was shut off to a way of thinking, and then by opening up that way of thinking, all of a sudden there's all this new stuff available. So, which is a long way of saying I hope the vlog works in that way for some of you lot, where you're like, oh wow, I've never tried that, and try it, and if it sends you off down a new road, then job done.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. I'll tell you what is impressive is the flipping vibrato on that PRS guitar. It's the 2-point one.
Right.
And what I didn't know, I've never worked this out right, so for those of you who've got one, when I think it was the American Standard Strat first turned up, maybe it had a 2-point vibrato rather than the 6 screws. And I'd never really known if that front of that bridge plate is supposed to sit on the guitar or off. Well, as it turns out, it's supposed to sit off by about 1mm.
Okay.
Although it's totally fine to put it on the face of the guitar as well. But set up like that, it's...
Nice. That's great. Wow.
Compare that to a 1961 bridge set up to float. So I'll just give it a fighting chance by getting it in tune in the first place. Right. and then you need to...
Knock it back. Yeah, right, okay.
It's not bad. It's not
That's
bad.
really good. Really good.
And then here finally is one set on the body, flat to the body.
Right. Can you still knock it back in?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, right.
If you go all the way down,
The strings get stuck at the nut.
they not stuck in the nut. The bridge just gets a little bit stuck. It's not quite there, right?
Right.
So this one's
Oh,
gone out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's a mechanical
Yeah,
device.
yeah, of course. Wow. Went to a party. Everybody had matching pants.
I mean, you'd get away with that for 2 or 3 songs. Not that you're ever going to be wanging it that much.
No.
So there you go. On the body, fully floating, and vintage style. They all come back in tune. So there's a whole vlog on that coming up.
Nice. I want to do a show on all of the on all of the wangers.
Okay.
Let's have a look at all the wangers.
Kalas, Floyd's,
All the-
V-trims.
yeah. Maestro, Vibrola, all the wangers.
Bigsby.
But yeah.
Good. Anyway, there you go, Fender Jeff. I hope it's useful. Evan Diebold, or Evan DeBold. Hi DNM, I'm looking for an amp to pair with my 2-Rock Studio Signature for wet dry. Which amps are your favourite to pair with Mix CRS?
I love pairing the Matchless with the CRS, but I must say the TS1 with the CRS is otherworldly.
Sounds pretty killer. Anything actually works
Really,
with it.
yeah, really anything.
Depends how you set your studio signature up, but pretty much anything works great with it. A tweed works really nice. As we always say, unless you have a very specific requirement for the gain levels to be different, it makes sense that whatever you pair with it is a similar kind of gain level. Especially if you use other pedals and stuff. If it, if one amp breaks up a tiny bit more than the other, then that's all good. But if you've got one that's really overdriven and one that's really clean, it just creates a weird thing that requires a specific. I don't want to say bad. It's just it requires a specific application. One amp that I absolutely love with it is the 1979 Fender Bassman 70.
Right.
Just sounds completely killer with it. So an old Silverface Fender, like a Twin or a Pro or anything like that. Yeah, pretty much
Anything that you like the sound of.
yeah. And I would say it's a good opportunity if if your heart's sort of in 2-Rock land, but actually you really love Voxes as well, get a Vox. So then on the days you want to just play the Vox, you can play the Vox.
Yeah.
And that'll work great with it.
Yeah. Even something like an AC-15
Yeah.
will sound amazing with it.
As long as, because once you start cranking the 2-Rock up, it will leave the AC-15 for dead volume-wise. So it won't, the AC-15 won't keep up and it'll be overdriving heavily.
Yeah. But yeah, in that case, you've got an AC-30.
Yeah.
Job done.
So yeah, anything that you like will work great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Elias Blum asking a question that quite a few people asked. Elias, he says, no mention of my favourite analog delay, the ARDX20, in your recent BBD dive. With the Amaze control, I bet it could go toe to toe with the Discovery. It can't on a couple of factors. It doesn't do as long as the Discovery, does it?
No.
What is it? What's the maximum in the ARDX20?
I want to say 600. Yeah, I think it's 600 around there.
Let's have a look.
And also, it doesn't have the bottom end roll off.
600, yeah. Yeah, it is also absolutely up there with mine and Dan's favourite analog delays. Why didn't we include it? Don't know why we didn't include it. Maybe because the ones we chose, like the carbon copy, were sort of, the carbon copy is probably the most successful single format analog delay out there. We chose the Sur because we figure it is basically the best, given that it's got
feature wise
900 milliseconds.
Yeah. Actually, more if you tweak it.
Yeah, and some other stuff.
The roll off, the frequency roll off thing, and the repeats is really clever.
But then in that also the Dold Rubberneck came up and the Carbon Copy Deluxe came up in the comments, and I think it bears doing with those two.
Sure,
because they both got feature sets that were more impressive than I realised.
Yeah.
So
another one that came up was the Seymour Duncan, their analog delay.
Oh yeah, the Vapor Trail, maybe?
Yeah, which is really clever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely. Delay Llama, of course.
Yeah.
So good.
The Delay Llama Extreme. So good. Ryan Fraley says EVH new to anchor the trems. Yes, indeed. So all the classic Van Halen, that was flat on the body. Yeah, David Tompkins, the day I blocked off my trem was the day my vibrato came alive. Interesting. Yeah, you mean finger vibrato, I guess. I do talk about blocking it off in the video, briefly.
Excellent.
Yeah, I sort of concluding that if you're going to do that, just get a hardtail.
Oh, really?
Well, why?
Because you can go...
No. If it's blocked, it won't move.
Oh, like that.
Blocked,
okay.
actually putting a piece of...
Oh, okay. Absolutely, right.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, when you actually physically block it, you get a piece of wood and you put it here in between the back of the trem block and the guitar, so it physically can't move. And then what that enables you to do is take out all the springs, because people, just as people don't seem to believe that pickguard material doesn't make a difference, you can hear these things.
Yeah.
And I proved that in the video,
It's the built-in reverb.
And I think that's the only reason I can see for wanting to block this off, because you don't want the sound of the springs. Interestingly, on the PRS, they were resonating at a frequency that was making a continual feedback.
No.
Yeah. I didn't talk about it in the video because it's too confusing.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's really cool.
They were.
Beautiful. Wicked. Yeah. EQD Dispatch Master says singers on speakerphone.
Oh yes. Didn't they do a special edition version of that just recently?
Did they? Okay.
That is a great delay pedal. Is the Dispatch Master.
And Marcus Reeves says on the subject of BBD, you guys still need to experience the Carlsbad Mantis I left with you guys. It's outstandingly pretty. Yeah, we'll have to give that some trying as well.
Yeah, Henning Hesse says the tremolo block has a lot of mass. Yes, it does. Good point. So a hardtail does sound different from a Strat with a vibrato in it. If you believe that anything other than the pickups makes any difference in your guitar, if you're one of those crazy people that believes that. Yeah, who else says? And Todd Roy says it's because you already have the Strat and hardtails are hard to come by. Yeah, of course. Get another guitar. I'm from that school of thought that says I just don't want a guitar to do it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want 10 guitars that differ in sound by about 1%.
Sure. Yeah. I totally get that.
But yeah, I guess if that's your guitar and coming by another guitar is difficult or compromised or whatever, then yeah, why not? David Tompkins says I get annoyed with the royal pain in the arse that's a Floyd with a broken string. Yeah. Scott from Baltimore, I put strips of rubber in my springs. They've vibrated sympathetically within certain notes. Yet.
Isn't there a device that's got like foam and a spring catcher or something that for the trims for that sort of thing?
Almost certainly. I know some of the PRSs I've seen have got fingers of foam down the springs.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
and Paul Matulovic says, no, Earthquaker Devices did a heritage release of the OG Disaster Transport.
Okay. Actually, it is the Disaster Transport I was thinking of. Yeah, and these things are volume dependent, aren't they? So there'll be a load of comments that say, of course you can't hear the springs, and that's because the people who can't hear the springs have never played above 75 dB. If you play at 110 dB with everything, with the wall shaking, I promise you can hear those springs.
Yep.
My DGT is particularly bad for it. Bad stroke good. Yeah.
Cool.
Mike 2203. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
He says, I have one of my telly set up with 13s to play Quo. Amazing how good the tone is. It's easy to play too. I should have done this ages ago.
Yeah. So I really like the heavier strings on a telly. I played some of those Quo guitars when I met them, and I was playing really light strings then, and they were set up like rock and roll.
Were they?
Yeah. It's like, yeah. And I mean, I'll never forget, because I didn't really know who Quo were, and I was backstage and I heard these guitars at soundcheck, and I was like, and it was the fattest, meatiest guitar sound, and I thought, what is? There must be Les Pauls, and I was going through my mind what would be creating those sounds. And I walked out in our Telecasters, and I couldn't believe it. Such lovely guys, far out, like being there at soundcheck while they're doing their thing. They were amazing.
Oh, they were them and DC were my favourite bands when I was a kid.
Yeah,
just on repeat, both of them.
Yeah, it's so good.
And it's interesting because I think AC/DC and Quo share something in the way they swing.
Oh wow! Okay.
There's a swing there and this could well be a polarizing comment, but in a lot of rock music, I don't hear a lot of swing.
Right.
And the rock bands that I like swing.
Yeah. Okay.
And Quo did, and DC did. I would say Deep Purple did. And that's the kind of rock music I liked.
Sure.
That had almost like a rhythm and blues swing to it, because almost that's where it came from.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If you think, Angus, listen to all Angus's solos and then go and listen to Chuck Berry, it's like, oh.
Yeah, but I remember setting up some 13s on my guitar, and I called Mick and I said, I'm really excited. I put some 13s on. He says, right, bring them in. He said, and let me hear you play it. And what was it? We'll make a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was really excited. I came in and I could barely play a note, and Mick's like, no, put your old strings back on, sunshine. because we'd had Josh Smith was in. Yeah. And I'm like, I was just so enamored with his tone and the way he plays and stuff, and so yeah. But I got my 1152s on, and I'm sort of still really happy with those.
Yeah, it is mad because you listen to Josh. We've said this many times before, but let's say it again briefly. Listen to Josh Smith play his 13s. Everything's there. He's all over the fretboard. His intonation's amazing. The tone is good. I'd try and play it. I can't get any treble out.
Yeah.
And I have, compared to Dan, I'm not very trebly anyway. I have a sort of rounder sound out of me. So you put that up to 13s, and I'm like, nah, I can't make that work.
Yeah.
But yes, Mike, there is a time when it does work, and I can certainly see that, playing rhythm guitar on a telly is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Glad you like it. My springs are coated, says Paul Matulovic, but that's because they were meant for a Floyd. And heavy as all get out. As heavy as all get out. Heavy as all get out, maybe. Yeah, I didn't know you could get coated springs, but that makes perfect sense. Nanny Green Who says, for mixed 335 milliseconds always on delay timing, do you recommend digital, analog or tape? Any of the above?
Yeah.
The brighter the delay, the quieter you want it. So if you've got a straight, like, I don't know, Boss DD, whatever, 3, 5, 8, a straight digital delay that has no tone shaping on the repeats, you'll want that set very, very quiet, probably at about 8 o'clock on the delay level, in my experience.
Yeah.
But then that depends how hard you're hitting it as well.
But also, if you've got a bright delay, but you can roll off some of that bottom end, you can add a like almost reverb type quality to it.
Yeah.
But still, it's really interesting. We think that it's the top end that's getting in the way. A lot of the time, it's just the full frequency.
Too much.
It's just too much. So if you've got a delay pedal that has got a loop that you can put an effect in to affect the repeat, stick an EQ in there.
Oh,
and
nice.
Shape the EQ of the repeats, and it's amazing what you can achieve.
And then, so moving on from that digital delay, if you go to a tape delay after that, now a nice, well-maintained tape delay has got all the fidelity of a digital delay, in many cases nicer, in my opinion. So that same rules apply, really. As you're able to affect the tone of the delay repeats, as Dan was saying, whether it's rolling off low end, whether it's rolling off high end, or a bit of both, so it kind of filters, it's at that point you can afford to have the delay level a bit higher, because it just sits back out of the way. So any will work. Just, I guess the acid test is when you play, if it feels like it's in the way, turn the delay level down. And there might be a point where you ask the question, well, if it's turned down that much, what's the point of having it on? Play for 2 minutes and turn it off, and that will answer your question.
Yeah.
Because it just does this thing where it sits out the way, and it sort of, you don't want to turn it off after a while.
Yeah, totally. Andy Hightides has brought up a really good point. He says, don't the springs ground the bridge? So the ground wire from the pots goes into the little claw that the springs sit on. So if you do get rid of, if you do get rid of the springs and you do block the tremolo off, you need to re-ground.
You'd need to ground the base plate.
The base plate. Yeah, really good point, mate.
That's
well
a
done.
great point. I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need, yeah. Well, let's just show you that very briefly. So underneath here, of this volume pot, are your ground wires, right? One of them goes, well, some of them connect all the grounds. One of them goes off to the ground on the jack socket. The other one goes off, and sometimes it will come just from the jack socket and joins here, where this glob of solder is. Look. On the bridge plate, on the claw, and as Dan rightly says, that's what grounds your.
Yeah.
So when you're in contact with the strings,
Exactly.
that gives you your.
Nice.
Eagle Ray Rob. Hello, Rob. He says, I'm looking for switchers for multiple heads, switched between one cab. I know of the radial headbone, but was hoping for a device that sports at least 4 heads.
The Ampete.
Yeah, the Ampete is the only one I know of.
Yeah.
Ampete, amp as in AMP, and then ETE, eat, or am as in AM, Pete as in Pete, Ampete. And certainly when we go to guitar stores across the world and we see that being done, that's what is used.
Yeah. Absolutely. They're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Can't think of anything else. So if you go into a guitar store, for example, and they've got 25, maybe not 25, they've got 10 heads, they'll all be going through the Ampete into a selection of cabs. So yeah, check those out.
Yeah.
Check those out. Joel Habrial says, I saw Ziggy Marley play last week. It was fantastic. How
Awesome.
about a reggae show? The funk episode taught me a lot, and I would love more episodes like that.
Well, funnily enough, Stephen Marley, a dear friend of mine who is Stephen Marley's MD, hopefully if they come to the UK we can get them on. Be really...
You mean Ziggy Marley's MD?
No, Stephen Marley, Ziggy, who is another son.
Yeah, but you said Stephen Marley, who is Stephen Marley's MD.
Sorry, Stephen Marley. Right. Dear friend of mine who is Stephen Marley's MD, who is Bob Marley's another son of Bob Marley.
Okay.
And is out playing at the moment. So, because I don't have a contact with Ziggy Marley, but I do with Stephen Marley.
Awesome.
And I think a reggae show would be really interesting. Because
we would have to get someone in for that because Dan and I know nothing about
The
it.
thing is, if you think that reggae is just upstrokes,
No.
You missed the point. Go and have a listen to the guitar solo from Three Little Birds.
Three Little Birds.
Which was recorded live. There's a whole Wikipedia thing about just that guitar solo and how it happened. It is incredible.
You know what I'd like to do? I would then like to. We could probably cover it in the same show where that becomes two-tone.
Oh yeah, okay.
And what the differences are and the subtleties, because you might assume it's all the same. I'm gonna stick my neck out and say it probably isn't the same. I don't know because I just have no knowledge of those spheres of music. That would be fascinating.
I get my braces on and go, hey.
Buster Dan Vessel. Nice. Good suggestion, Joel. We like that. Paul Matulovic. Hello, Paul.
Hey,
it's nice
mate.
to hear from you. He says, Pedes Legenda. I like that. He says, to follow up on Four Leaf, I ended up with a Proton, which wasn't a King's Ransom like the other one. And in playing, recalled how filter effects taught me to master my attack with the right hand.
Really good point.
Do you have any experience, this is a great question, of effects forming fundamental skills
Yeah.
in that way, such as timing with delays and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, quite a few. The delay timing thing was really interesting. So, when I was growing up in Brisbane,
Just a little boy.
there was a band that was playing around the same time that we were, and actually this guy got myself and my bass player kicked out of our apartment.
The Marty Kangaroo Tones.
He rocked up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and just proceeded to play all of his songs like really loud, and we'd had issues with the guy downstairs anyway. Got a complaint, got kicked out. But this guy was an amazing rhythm guitar player, big Edge fan, and he did all this stuff with time delays. And I heard it and I went, well, that's just time delays. That's really easy. Then I tried to do it. It's like, you know what? That's really hard to do, to get that stuff. And what it forces you to do, you have to play in time, you have to relax, because a little push or a pull either way, and it changes the feel of that stuff completely. So playing with rhythmical delays is a really good one. Playing with a wah pedal in time is another really good one.
Yeah, wah wah is the one that immediately came to mind for me. Because you can really concentrate on where you put those vowel extensions, as it were. And then that starts you down a path of listening to the hi-hat and the kick drum and all other kind of things.
Yeah.
In a different way. What else? I think a good way into it is if you think about some classic sounds and you start deconstructing them, that in order to play it properly with the effect, you need to play it properly with the effect, if that makes sense. The example of rhythmic delays is definitely one. What's the famous one where there's only one slapback delay and it sounds like there's more, that we talked about on the show once?
The David Bowie.
Yeah, Let's Dance.
Let's Dance.
Jink, 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 jink.
Yeah, he goes jink, 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 and it's just a quarter note.
Yeah.
And he's just going, oh. Yeah, as it is. Yeah. And it's just a quarter note. And
it sounds like...
and there's all that stuff going on.
Sounds like it's way more complex than it is.
Yeah, but it's actually really simple.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was all put on post. So there's a really great interview with Nile Rodgers going through that stuff, and he goes, and he just tried it out. And it's like, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, yeah. So that wah wah. I think for me, maybe things like univibes and harmonic trems, about getting the pulse of it.
Yeah.
Fuzz and volume is a huge
Massive.
one, and indeed overdrive and volume. So
Yeah.
fundamentals of getting that guitar to sit in your live mix just by using the volume control on
Yeah.
the guitar.
I think expressively finding the right fuzz, because obviously we've done loads of shows featuring loads of different fuzzes, and it's such a simple circuit and so many of the same, but the reason there are so many fuzzes because you change one tiny thing and it fundamentally changes the character of the fuzz. And finding that fuzz that suits you, like I use my old Analog Man Sunface, and as yet for me, I haven't found a fuzz that suits me better. It's not terribly high gain, but the way it works with the telly and the way it works with the dynamics of the right hand, for me, is just amazing. And that's something that I learned while we were doing our thing. That it's just, wow, you find that right fuzz that's got that voice, and it's all about what you're doing with your right hand.
Yeah.
Fuzz is a big one. But another one for me is phasers and where the sweep happens. Because you've got this frequency sweep with the phase, if you're playing on Fiddly Widdly while the sweep's going through the low end, you're not going to hear any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But as it comes through, suddenly and you're going Fiddly Widdly, it's like, oh, that's going to stick out like anything. So it's really interesting, that stuff. It's, I guess you could pick any effect really.
Final one for me would be bigger digital reverbs, which for until I was in my mid-40s I'd never messed around with, but maybe even only the last couple of years, to be fair. And learning how to deal with huge reverbs in terms of what that requires of you playing wise, because if you try and play anything complex, and certainly on the CXM, it's got a preset which is just like this huge bloom reverb, which I use a bit, and if you hit the string too hard, it just becomes this wash of mess, which would be really cool in certain circumstances, but that's not what I want. I want it to be a pillow, as it were, or a bed of wash for what I'm playing over the top, and therefore you've got to get your pick attack quite right. So I think maybe the recurring theme here is the fundamental is what's coming out of you in terms of dynamic, volume, gain, attack, and what then happens with the effect. So it's playing the effect, if you like.
Yep.
And that's probably the fundamental, because then it becomes an ecosystem at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Yeah. So yeah, nice question, Paul. Thank you for that. Carson Green. Recently, I got a Sunface, an RCA-GE. One thing I noticed though is the first nudge of the guitar volume off 10 makes a huge difference. Is that normal?
Absolutely.
The rest of the range is grabbed. Yeah, it's not only is it normal, it's exactly what you want in a fuzz face.
Yep.
So if that's not for you, look at something like a Big Muff or a Tone Bender.
Or even a Silicon, a BC 108, something like that, that's less.
Nah, my favourite fuzz for cleanup is a Silicon.
Yeah, I'm not saying I won't clean up. I'm saying that you've got, if the germanium one is like, you go to 9.8, silicon one's like 9.6.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's a tiny,
9.
tiny bit more. But yeah, if you don't like that, then something like
it's
or a tone bender.
It is what a fuzz face is supposed to do. The other thing is, I think all sun faces, but I'm not sure, have the input control, which can increase the effect of that.
Yeah.
So just make sure your input trimmer is set to the maximum, whichever way gives you the least cleanup.
Yeah.
That might help. Yeah, but yes, it is absolutely supposed to do that. That's what a fuzz face is for.
Indeed.
And what that means is you could have your fuzz face plugged into a semi-cranked Marshall and get the most beautiful clean sound, which we know from Hendrix and we know from other people down the years. And it is that, literally that, like, whoa, what a beautiful clean sound, to this full-on fuzzy, glorious disaster of a mess.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I was, my daughter Olivia has recently got into Hendrix
Yeah.
and had some stuff on at the house. And I'm listening to it. And I'm listening to some of those cleaner tones that he gets. And I've yet to hear anyone getting, like, recorded come close to that stuff.
I mean, you've got to have a conversation with Roger Mayer, really, and other people that were around, maybe Eddie Kramer, because whatever anyone says, somebody else contradicts. So they'll say, well, yeah, of course there were Fender amps there in the studio, which there may well have been. You can hear when it's the Marshall turned down. I mean, it's clear as day to me.
Yeah.
That you can hear that the Marshall's turned down, and that's that lovely clean sound.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you can hear if it's not that, if it's something else. But yeah, just mega sound.
So incredible. So incredible.
Yeah. It took me a while to get Hendrix. To get to Hendrix, I went through Stevie Ray Vaughan, Mike McCready of Pearl Jam, and John Frusciante of the Chili's. And it took them to get
you back to the source.
Get me to Hendrix.
Yeah, wow.
They were kind of the conduits to Hendrix.
Right.
And it took a while, and I think I'm still underappreciating the genius of that guy.
Yeah.
And the machine, you know. It just...
Well, that was Stevie for me, because I mean, I had no idea who Hendrix was. And Voodoo Child, I still don't know if I'm saying that right. Voodoo Chili.
Yes, yep, Child.
And, you know, hearing that the Stevie Ray Vaughan, this is amazing. And then it's actually a trumpet player I was playing with at the time, Jeff Innes, who's awesome. And he said, you have to hear the original.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that was
it's funny
my first time hearing Hendrix.
Same as Dan, you know, I think my first experience of SRV's version of it was either on whichever record it was on, Couldn't Stand the Weather or Soul to Soul, can't remember which. But actually was from the Live record.
Right.
And then when I heard Jimmy's version for the first time, I was like, wow, that's a bit tame. And as time's gone on, I now struggle a bit with the SRV version.
Yeah, right, okay.
Because the Jimmy version, once you lock into it, is so visceral.
Yeah, right.
Me and Nev often say it's the best guitar sound ever.
Right.
Ever.
Amazing.
And I'm kind of, it's just, oh man. Anyway, Carson, just to say, that's what your fuzz face will do. Go and listen to Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix, Slight Return, and I think it's Slight Return. I always get confused as well. The hit, and listen to how that guitar comes from like clean wacka wacka into the full on fuzz madness when the song kicks in, and that's what your fuzz face is for.
Yeah. Amazing.
Jay Sackett. He says, "Hello friends, just checking in from the soggy Catskills Mountains. A little recommendation for some tunes to enjoy. Phil Cook, Old Highway D, nothing better." Okay, Phil Cook, Old Highway D. We'll give it a spin. Thank you for that, Jay.
Lovely.
I hope soggy is as bad as it gets. Public Witness Records. Oh, I got flipping ad for speeding last week, didn't I?
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I mean, I broke the law. Fair play. But I can do a naughty boy
Oh, okay.
course because I haven't had a speeding fine before.
Oh, well done.
I was doing 80 in a 70 on a clear road.
Oh, that's a bit tight.
I thought it was a bit tight. But it's breaking the law. It's breaking the law.
Breaking
It's
the
a fair
law.
cop.
Breaking the
If
law.
you can't do the time, don't do the crime. So I can go on my naughty boy course and
Okay. Well, yeah. Worth doing.
get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not.
So easy to do.
I'm not
though.
deriding that, by the way. I know lots of people that have done the naughty boy course, naughty girl course.
Yeah, Doug did it.
It's always interesting.
Yeah.
We could all be safer drivers, no doubt about it. I'm just glad I never got caught on my motorbike. What am I looking for? I was looking for... oh yes, Public Witness Records question, because it's not there, and BV will have sent it to me, which he has. Thank you so much. No question asked. So Public Witness Records, sorry if we've missed your question. Yeah. G Barge, hello G. Always great to hear from you, buddy. He says, gentlemen, could you please describe how the ARDX20 with the Amaze controller compares to the Boss DM101, functionally and tonally? Also, I really enjoyed the Marshall Bogner cab and the Bassman 2-Rock cab at Jackie Green yesterday. Cheers. Oh, nice. Okay, so you were trying some stuff out. Nice.
Lovely.
The first thing to say about the ARDX20 is that it is only ever a single head repeat. So you've only got one head, right? In the DM101, there are various modes that have got more heads. So if you want a multi-head delay, then DM101 every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we'd have to put them next to each other.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd be a million miles apart.
No.
And also, obviously, the DM101 does much longer delays as well. So if
Yeah.
you want that, yeah.
The other thing to say though is that every time we've used the ARDX20, and it was Mixer main analog delay for many years, it's a very, very special sounding thing. The Amazio, which gives it the modulation, there's something about that. It was really magic. So I'd be really keen to give it a listen. I'm taken with the 101. I think that is going to end up on the board with something else. I'm still deciding.
Yeah. And of course, all the other stuff that the 101 does. But tonally, I think we'd have to put them next to one another and have a good listen.
Yeah.
I have to say, the reason I don't have it on my board is because it's so big.
Yeah.
And you have to have the Amaze. And I find that if I need a board, it's usually, if I'm doing a gig, it's usually my mid-size Schmidt array. So the 350. And on that, I can fit 5 or 6 pedals and a Courtmaster. If it's a TPS gig and then a bit more serious, then I'll take the big board with G3 and everything. But for most of the small gigs I don't need that size of board.
Mm.
And in that environment, the ARDX20 and the Amaze is just too much real estate for one sound, even though it is one glorious sound. So pretty much always my future factory is the delay I would take, because A, the filter on the repeats means that you can get it sounding pretty analog if you want that.
Mm.
Secondly, tap tempo right there on the top panel, easy peasy. 4 presets gives me slapback, doubling, 335, and a dotted eighth and a quarter, which I can tap. And that's every single delay sound I need.
That's great.
For any gig.
Yeah.
Plus, it sounds spectacularly good.
Mm.
So it tends to win
Yeah.
in a choice. But if it's specifically analog delay, ARDX20 every day of the week.
Yeah, beautiful.
But it is a lot to fit on a small board.
Ed Airfire says, D&M, is there any housekeeping today? Thank you, Ed. Nothing specific, but just to remind people, patrons, we have our monthly pedal giveaway, and also the podcast of this recording goes out free to our lovely patrons. So yeah, thank you all so much for your support. And also, there are some new t-shirts at the shop. Mick is wearing one schwangtastic shirt at the moment.
Schwangtastico.
Lovely, yeah. And massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch. It is the main way we fund the show. So yes, thank you so much, everyone.
Indeed. Other than that, no. Keep your eye on your inbox for the next patron giveaway, which will be something sexy.
Indeed.
Sorry, G, I completely misunderstood you and displaying my ignorance for all to see, and that I didn't know who Jackie Green was, so apologies. He went to a Jackie Green gig.
Oh, okay.
And or where someone called Jackie Green was playing, who had a Marshall with a Bogner cab and a Bassman with a 2-Rock cab.
Nice.
Nice. And I'm really sorry I don't know who Jackie Green is. That's probably one of those hilarious blind spots that we all have. Oh, nice. Okay. Jackie Green. There he is. consider me listening to something new, G. Thank you for the recommendation.
Lovely.
I can tell just by looking at him I'm going to like his music. It's funny that, isn't it? Good. That's us then.
Lovely.
Ranzer,
Timing.
the final comment from tonight, final super chat. Ranzer, thank you, Ran, for your continued support, and everyone else for your continued support, for being here. We truly appreciate it. It is. I've been explaining to a few people this week what that pedal show is. I've met some. Thanks to Paul Stacey, I've met some really interesting folks these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And sort of explaining to them what that pedal show is. And they say, is it like gear demos then? And I'm like, kinda. They say, is it tuition? I'm like, not really. And I say, it's a bunch of people that are connected by a shared passion. And they go, I understand.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great.
Bing.
Lovely.
And it's a very nice place to be. So we thank you
Indeed.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay, as Ran says then, Dan. Ran says, Dan.
Yep.
Play us out.